The morning sun barely broke through the thick clouds hanging over the Montana mountains when Samuel Mackenzie stepped onto his front porch with his usual cup of black coffee. At 45, his weathered hands told the story of 15 years spent working alone on this remote ranch. The silence around him was so complete that he could hear his own heartbeat echoing in his ears. Samuel's days had become predictable routines. Wake up at 5, check the cattle, mend fences, fix whatever broke overnight, and fall asleep to the sound of wind through the pine trees. It wasn't always like this. Once this same porch had echoed with laughter. Once, he'd shared his morning coffee with someone who made even the coldest Montana winters feel warm, but that was before the accident. Before the hospital room where doctors spoke in hushed tones about complications. Before he lost both his wife and their unborn son in one terrible night that changed everything. The ranch that once felt like paradise became his prison, and the silence that used to bring peace now felt like punishment. 15 years is a long time to live with ghosts. Samuel had tried dating a few times in the early years, but women from town didn't understand the isolation. They'd visit once or twice, see the endless miles of empty land, and realize they couldn't handle a life where the nearest neighbor was 20 miles away. Eventually, Samuel stopped trying. He convinced himself he was better alone. The cattle didn't judge him. The horses didn't ask questions about his past. The land demanded work, not conversation. It should have been enough. But on quiet evenings, when the work was done, Samuel would sit on his porch and wonder what his life might have looked like if things had gone differently. The letter arrived on a Tuesday in October. Samuel almost threw it away, thinking it was another piece of junk mail. But something about the plain envelope with no return address made him curious. Inside was a handwritten note from his old friend Jack, someone he hadn't spoken to in years. The message was brief and strange. If you're still looking for a reason to keep going, call me. I might have an answer. Samuel stared at that note for 3 days before he finally picked up the phone. Jack's voice sounded older, more tired than he remembered. They talked about the weather and the cattle prices for a few minutes before Jack got to the real reason for his letter. Sam, I know this might sound crazy, but I've been working with some people who help families in bad situations. Really bad situations. There's this girl, barely 18, and she's pregnant. Her mother is desperate. Medical bills are piling up for her other kids, and she's about to lose everything. Samuel felt uncomfortable. Jack, I don't know what you're getting at, but just hear me out, Jack interrupted. This isn't what you think. These people, they're not bad people. They're just out of options. The girl's boyfriend ran off when he found out about the baby. The mother works 3 jobs, but it's not enough. They need help, and you. Well, you've got space and resources. The conversation lasted another hour. Jack explained how he'd gotten involved with a network of people who quietly helped families in crisis. Sometimes it was finding jobs. Sometimes it was connecting people with resources. And sometimes, in the most desperate cases, it was arranging for children to go to families who could provide better lives. It's not legal adoption, Jack admitted, but it's not what you're thinking either. These families know their kids will be safe and cared for. It's their choice, Sam, their last option. Samuel's hand shook as he held the phone. Part of him was horrified by what Jack was suggesting. But another part, the part that had been empty for 15 years, whispered that maybe this was the sign he'd been waiting for. I need time to think, Samuel said finally. Of course. But don't take too long. This girl's situation is getting worse every day. For the next week, Samuel barely slept. He walked his property at all hours, trying to make sense of his feelings. Was this wrong? Was he taking advantage of desperate people? Or was he offering help when no one else would? The turning point came when he found an old photo stuck in a book he was reading. It was a picture of him and his wife planning the nursery they'd never get to use. In the photo, she was pointing to a corner where they planned to put the crib, her face glowing with excitement about their future child. What would you do? He whispered to the photo. What would you tell me to do? Samuel called Jack the next morning, set up the meeting. The meeting took place in a diner in Billings, 2 hours from Samuel's ranch. Jack was there with a woman who introduced herself only as Ana. She was in her 40s, tired-looking, with worry lines around her eyes that spoke of too many sleepless nights. Ana spoke with a slight accent, choosing her words carefully. My daughter, she is good girl, but she make mistake with bad boy who promise her everything and give her nothing. Now she is scared, and I am scared too. I have 4 children. My youngest, he needs surgery for his heart. The bills. She stopped, unable to continue. Samuel found his voice. Where is she now? At home with her brothers and sisters. She helped me take care of them. She is gentle, kind. She loved children very much. She want to be teacher someday, but now. Ana shrugged helplessly. What exactly are you asking of me? Samuel asked, though he already knew. Ana looked directly at him. I am asking you to give my daughter and her baby a chance at better life. I am asking you to be the family they need when I cannot be. The arrangement was simple and heartbreaking. $5,000 would cover the immediate medical expenses for Ana's youngest child. In return, her daughter Maria would come to live at Samuel's ranch. She would help with household tasks. And when the baby was born, they would become part of Samuel's family. She speaks little English, Ana warned, but she learns fast. She is a smart girl, just scared. Samuel drove to Ana's small apartment that evening. The building was old and tired, with peeling paint and broken steps. Ana led him upstairs to a cramped space where 5 people somehow made a home. Maria was sitting on a worn couch, her hands folded protectively over her swollen belly. She was tiny, barely looking her 18 years, with dark hair pulled back and eyes that seemed too old for her face. When she saw Samuel, she looked down at the floor. Ana spoke to her daughter in rapid Spanish. Samuel caught a few words. His high school Spanish was rusty, but he understood good man and safe. Maria nodded without looking up. The exchange felt surreal. Ana counted the money with shaking hands while Maria gathered her few belongings into a single suitcase. Her younger siblings watched from the doorway, understanding that their sister was leaving, but not understanding why. The drive back to the ranch was the longest 2 hours of Samuel's life. Maria sat pressed against the passenger door, staring out the window. Neither of them spoke. The radio played softly, filling the silence with country songs about heartbreak and new beginnings. As they pulled up to the ranch house, Samuel saw it through Maria's eyes. The isolation that had been his refuge must have looked like exile to her. Miles and miles of empty land, no neighbors, no escape. This is home now, he said quietly, immediately regretting how that sounded. This wasn't her choice. This was survival. Maria nodded and followed him inside, her suitcase clutched tightly in her hands. Samuel showed her to the spare room, the room that was supposed to have been a nursery once upon a time. It had a bed, a dresser, and a window that looked out over the mountains. You'll be safe here, Samuel said, the words feeling inadequate. I'll take care of you and the baby. Maria looked at him for the first time since they'd met. Her eyes were filled with fear, but also something else. Hope, maybe. Or just the determination to survive whatever came next. As Samuel closed her door and heard the soft sound of a chair being moved against it, he realized that everything had changed. For 15 years, he'd been waiting for something to fill the emptiness in his life. He thought he knew what that something would look like. He was about to discover how wrong he'd been. The first morning was awkward as hell. Robert woke up at his usual 5 o'clock and made coffee. But instead of the silence he was used to, he could hear movement from the spare room. Rosa was awake too, but she wasn't coming out. He could hear her moving around quietly, like she was trying not to make any noise. Robert made extra coffee and toast, then knocked gently on her door. Rosa, I made breakfast. No answer. He tried again in his broken Spanish. Desayuno? Still nothing. Finally, he just left the plate and cup outside her door and went to do his morning chores. When he came back an hour later, the food was gone, but Rosa was nowhere to be seen. This became their routine for the first week. Robert would leave food outside her door 3 times a day, and it would disappear when he wasn't looking. Rosa was like a ghost in his house. The only time he actually saw her was through the kitchen window. She would sit on the back porch steps in the afternoons, her hands resting on her belly, staring out at the mountains. She looked so small and lost that it made Robert's chest hurt to watch her. On the 8th day, something changed. Robert was in the barn fixing a broken stall door when he heard a soft voice behind him. "Can I help?" He turned around and there was Rosa, standing in the doorway with the afternoon sun behind her. Her English was careful and slow, but clear. "You don't have to," Robert said, setting down his hammer. "You should rest." Rosa shook her head. "I help at home. I work. I cannot just sit and do nothing." That was the beginning. Rosa started helping with small things around the house. She couldn't do heavy work because of the baby, but she could fold laundry and wash dishes. She moved through the house quietly, always staying in different rooms from Robert. But at least she was moving. Real breakthrough came with the animals. Robert had an old horse named Thunder, who was usually grumpy with strangers. But one afternoon, Robert found Rosa standing by Thunder's fence, talking to him softly in Spanish. The horse was actually listening, his ears forward and relaxed. "He likes you," Robert said, walking over slowly so he wouldn't scare her. Rosa gave him a small smile. It was the first time he'd seen her really smile. Animals, they understand feelings. They don't need words. "You're good with him," Robert said. "I've never seen Thunder so calm with someone new." From that day on, Rosa would spend time with the animals every afternoon. The horses would come to the fence when they saw her coming. The barn cats, who usually hid from everyone, would rub against her legs. Even the cattle seemed calmer when she was around. Slowly, Rosa started talking more. Her English got better every day, and Robert realized how smart she really was. She would ask him what things were called, then repeat the words until she got them right. She was determined to learn. "Why you live alone so long?" she asked one evening. They were sitting on the porch after dinner, watching the sunset paint the mountains purple and gold. Robert was quiet for a long time. He hadn't talked about his wife to anyone in years. "I was married once," he finally said. "We were going to have a baby. But there were problems, and I lost them both." Rosa nodded slowly. "That is why you helped me." "Maybe," Robert said honestly. "I don't really know why I did it. I just knew you needed help." "My boyfriend, he said he loved me," Rosa said quietly. "He said we'd get married, be family. But when I tell him about baby, he disappear, gone, like he never real." They sat in comfortable silence after that. Two people who had been hurt, sharing the same porch and the same view of the endless Montana sky. As the weeks passed, their routine became more natural. Rosa would get up early and make breakfast for both of them. Her cooking was different from what Robert was used to, but it was good. She made eggs with peppers and onions, and she somehow made regular beans taste amazing. "This is how my mother teach me," she would say, showing him how to season things properly. Food should have life in it. Robert found himself looking forward to meals. For 15 years, eating had just been something he had to do to keep working. Now it was something they shared. Rosa also started taking care of the house in ways Robert had never bothered with. She put flowers from the yard in old jars and set them on the kitchen table. She opened windows to let fresh air in. She made the place feel alive again, but the best part was the evenings. After dinner, they would sit on the porch, and Rosa would tell them about her family. She talked about her little brothers and sisters, how she used to help them with homework and read them stories before bed. "I missed them so much," she said one night, her hand on her belly. "But I know they're safer with money for medicine. My mother, she cry when I leave, but she's strong. She do what she have to do." Robert understood that feeling. Sometimes doing the right thing hurt like hell. "What do you want for your baby?" Robert asked Dot. Rosa was quiet for a long time. I want Baby to have choices I never have. I want Baby too. Go to school, learn things, maybe go to college. I want Baby to never be hungry or scared. And what do you want for yourself? I still want to be teacher, Rosa said softly. I know it sounds stupid now, but I still dream about it. Maybe someday, when Baby is bigger, maybe I can go to school again. It doesn't sound stupid, Robert said. It sounds like hope. Winter was coming early that year. The mountains were already white with snow, and the wind was getting colder. Rosa's belly was getting bigger too. She was about 7 months along now, and sometimes Robert would catch her holding her back or sitting down suddenly. Baby is strong, she would say when he asked if she was okay. Like little football player in there. Robert started reading books about pregnancy and babies. He hadn't done that since his wife was pregnant, and it brought back memories that were both painful and sweet. But this time felt different. This time, he might actually get to see a baby born healthy and safe. One evening, Rosa was washing dishes when she suddenly stopped and put her hand on her belly. Oh? Robert jumped up from his chair. What's wrong? Rosa started laughing. Baby is dancing. Here, feel. Before Robert could say anything, Rosa took his hand and placed it on her belly. For a moment, nothing happened. Then he felt it a strong kick against his palm. Wow, he breathed. That's really something. Baby knows you, Rosa said. Baby feels safe, too. That night, Robert lay in bed thinking about how much his life had changed. 3 months ago, he was completely alone, going through the motions of living without really feeling alive. Now he had someone to cook for, someone to talk to, someone who needed him, and soon there would be a baby. For the first time in 15 years, Robert fell asleep thinking about the future instead of the past. Outside his window, the first snow of winter was starting to fall, covering everything in clean white silence. But inside the house, there was warmth and the sound of someone else breathing. There was life waiting to begin. Robert smiled in the dark and let himself imagine what it would be like to hear a baby's cry echoing through these rooms. What it would be like to teach a little one to ride horses and love the land the way he did. Maybe Rosa was right. Maybe this baby would have all the choices she never had. And maybe, just maybe, Robert would finally understand what it meant to be a family again. The storm hit Montana like an angry giant throwing a tantrum. Robert had seen bad weather before, but this blizzard was something else entirely. Snow fell so thick and fast that he couldn't see the barn from the kitchen window. The wind howled like a wild animal, rattling every window in the house. Rosa was 9 months pregnant now, moving slowly and carefully around the house. Her belly was so big, she had to hold on to furniture to get around. For the past week, she'd been having what she called practice pains, little contractions that would come and go. Baby is getting ready, she told Robert that morning, rubbing her lower back. Maybe soon. Robert nodded, but inside he was worried. The nearest hospital was 40 miles away, and with weather like this, the roads would be impossible. He'd been through enough Montana winters to know when they were snowed in for days. By afternoon, the storm had gotten worse. The power flickered on and off, and Robert could hear tree branches breaking under the weight of ice and snow. He was adding wood to the fireplace when he heard Rosa call out from the kitchen. Robert! Something is different. He rushed to find her holding onto the kitchen counter, her face tight with pain. She was breathing hard, and there was a wet spot on the floor beneath her feet. My water broke, she said, trying to stay calm. Baby is coming now. Robert felt his heart jump into his throat. He grabbed the phone to call for help, but the line was dead. The cell phone had no signal. It never did during bad storms this far out. They were completely cut off from the outside world. Okay, Robert said, trying to keep his voice steady. Don't panic. We can do this. But inside, he was terrified. He'd helped deliver plenty of calves and foals over the years, but a human baby was completely different. What if something went wrong? What if Rosa or the baby got hurt because he didn't know what he was doing? Rosa grabbed his arm as another contraction hit. How long between pains? She asked through gritted teeth. Robert looked at the clock. About 10 minutes since the last one. We have time, Rosa said, though her voice was shaky. First babies take a long time usually. Robert helped her to the bedroom and got her comfortable. He remembered reading in one of his pregnancy books that walking could help, so for the next few hours, they walked around the house together. Rosa would stop and lean on him when the contractions came, breathing hard until they passed. Tell me about your horses, she said during one of the breaks. It helps to think about something else. So Robert told her stories about Thunder and the other horses, about the time one of the Maoris got loose and he found her a week later living with a herd of wild Mustangs. Rosa even laughed a little, which made Robert feel less scared. But as the hours passed, the contractions got stronger and closer together. Rosa couldn't walk anymore. She lay on the bed, gripping Robert's hand so tight he thought she might break his fingers. Something is wrong, she said during a particularly bad contraction. This hurts too much. Pain is normal, Robert said, though he wasn't sure if that was true. You're doing great. By midnight, the contractions were coming every few minutes. Rosa was exhausted and scared, and Robert felt completely helpless. All his books hadn't prepared him for this. The raw intensity of birth, the way Rosa's whole body was working to bring this baby into the world. I need to push, Rosa said suddenly. Baby is coming now. Robert had no choice but to help. He got clean towels and hot water, just like he'd seen in movies. His hands were shaking, but he tried to stay calm for Rosa's sake. You can do this, he told her. You're the strongest person I know. Rosa bore down with everything she had. Robert could see the baby's head starting to appear, dark hair wet and matted. It was the most incredible and terrifying thing he'd ever seen. One more push, Robert said, though he had no idea if that was right. I can see the baby. With a sound that was part scream and part relief, Rosa gave one final push. The baby slipped into Robert's waiting hands, tiny, perfect, and completely covered in blood and fluid. For a moment, the baby didn't move or make a sound. Robert's heart stopped. Then the little chest started moving up and down, and suddenly the baby let out a cry that filled the entire house. Is it okay? Rosa asked weakly. Is baby healthy? Robert was crying and didn't even realize it. She's perfect, he said, gently cleaning the baby with a soft towel. You have a beautiful little girl. The baby was so small she fit in Robert's 2 hands. She had dark hair like her mother and tiny fingers that gripped his thumb when he touched her palm. Her eyes were squeezed shut, but she was breathing strongly and crying with healthy lungs. Hello, little one, Rosa whispered as Robert placed the baby on her chest. I am your mama. Robert had to sit down because his legs wouldn't hold him up anymore. He just helped bring a human being into the world. This tiny person hadn't existed an hour ago, and now she was here, real and alive and completely dependent on them. What will you name her? Robert asked. Rosa looked down at her daughter, touching the baby's tiny hand. Luna, she said softly, because she was born during the storm, but she brought light into the darkness. Luna. Robert thought it was the most beautiful name he ever heard. Over the next few hours, Robert took care of both Rosa and Luna. He made sure Rosa had water and something to eat. He helped her figure out how to feed the baby. He changed Luna's first diaper, marveling at how something so small could be so perfectly formed. As dawn broke and the storm finally started to calm down, Robert sat in a chair next to the bed watching Rosa sleep with Luna curled up on her chest. Both mother and baby were healthy and safe. They'd made it through the night, but something had changed in Robert during those intense hours. Watching Luna being born, holding her tiny body in his hands, seeing the love in Rosa's eyes when she looked at her daughter, it all broke something open inside him that had been closed for 15 years. This wasn't about replacing the family he'd lost. This wasn't about filling an empty space in his house. This was about love, real, immediate, fierce love for 2 people, who had somehow become the most important things in his world. When Rosa woke up, she found Robert still sitting there, watching them sleep. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything, for saving us." "You saved me," Robert said, and he meant it. "Both of you." Rosa smiled, that same gentle smile he'd first seen when she was talking to Thunder. "We are family now," she said simply. "Real family," Robert nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Outside, the sun was shining on fresh snow, making everything sparkle like diamonds. Inside, Luna made a tiny sound in her sleep, and Rosa hummed softly to her. For the first time in 15 years, Robert's house felt like a home again. Not because it was filled with the family he'd lost, but because it was filled with the family he'd found. The storm was over, but their life together was just beginning. 6 months passed like a beautiful dream. Luna grew from a tiny newborn into a chubby, happy baby who smiled every time she saw Robert's face. She had Rosa's dark eyes and a laugh that could make even the grumpiest old rancher melt into a puddle. Robert had never known he could love someone so completely and immediately. Every morning, he would peek into the nursery they'd made from his old office, and Luna would kick her little legs and reach for him with grabby hands. "Papa." Rosa had started calling him when she talked to Luna in Spanish. "Papa is here." The word made Robert's heart do funny things every time he heard it. Rosa was thriving too. The scared, quiet girl who had arrived at his ranch was gone, replaced by a confident young woman who filled the house with laughter and music. She sang Spanish lullabies while she cooked, taught Robert new words every day, and had started talking about maybe taking some online classes to work toward her teaching dream. "I could study when Luna naps," she said one morning over breakfast. "Maybe start with just one class, see how it goes." Robert loved seeing the hope back in her eyes. "We'll make it work," he promised. "Whatever you need." Their life had found a rhythm that felt as natural as breathing. Robert would do the ranch work while Rosa took care of Luna and the house. In the evenings, they'd sit on the porch with Luna between them, watching the baby discover her own toes or laugh at the horses in the distance. People in town had started asking questions, of course. When Robert went to the feed store or the grocery store, folks would want to know about the young woman and baby they'd heard he was helping. Robert kept his answers simple. They needed a place to stay. I had room. Most people seemed to accept that. This was Montana, after all, where helping your neighbors wasn't unusual. But Robert could see the curiosity in their eyes, the way they were trying to figure out the real story. Then came the day that changed everything. Robert was in the barn fixing a broken gate when he heard a car coming up the long driveway. He looked out to see an old blue sedan kicking up dust as it approached the house. His stomach dropped when he recognized the driver. It was Carmen, Rosa's mother. Robert walked toward the house, his mind racing. Carmen had never contacted them since that day at her apartment. He'd assumed she was grateful that Rosa and Luna were safe and cared for. But the expression on Carmen's face as she got out of the car told him this wasn't a friendly visit. Rosa came out onto the porch carrying Luna, and her face went white when she saw her mother. "Mama, what are you doing here?" Carmen didn't answer right away. She stood there looking at Rosa holding her granddaughter, her eyes taking in Rosa's healthy glow and Luna's obvious well-being. Then her expression hardened. "I come to take you home," Carmen said in English, then switched to rapid Spanish. Robert couldn't understand most of what she was saying, but he could hear the anger and urgency in her voice. Rosa's answers got more upset as they talked, and Luna started crying from all the tension. "What's going on?" Robert asked, stepping closer. Carmen turned to him with eyes that were cold as winter. "I found better situation for my daughter and granddaughter. Man in Denver, he pay more money. Much more. He give Rose a job, nice apartment, good life in city." Robert felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. "More money?" $20,000. Carmen said, crossing her arms, "for both of them. Rosa and baby, they come with me today." "Mama, no," Rosa said, hugging Luna tighter. We are happy here. Luna is safe. I am learning. You think this is real life? Carmen interrupted. You? Think you can play house forever with this old man? You are 18 years old with baby and no education. This other man, he will marry you, give you real family. Robert's head was spinning. You can't just take them. Rosa is an adult. She can make her own choices. Carmen laughed, but it wasn't a nice sound. You think so? You want me to call police, tell them how you buy my daughter, how you keep her here like property? The word hit Robert like a slap. Is that what he'd done? He told himself he was helping, but had he really just bought Rosa like Carmen was saying? It's not like that, Robert said weakly. Then let her go, Carmen challenged. If this is not about money, if you really care about her, let her choose better life. Rosa was crying now, Luna still fussing in her arms. Mama, please. Don't make me leave. Robert is good man. He helped us when no one else would. He helped himself, Carmen said harshly. Lonely old man buys young girl to take care of him. This is not love, Mia. This is business. Those words cut Robert deeper than anything had in years. Because part of him wondered if Carmen was right. Had he really been helping Rosa? Or had he been helping himself? When he looked at Rosa and Luna, was he seeing them as they really were? Or was he seeing the family he'd always wanted? The man in Denver, he owns restaurants, Carmen continued. Rosa will work for him, learn business. Luna will have good schools, other children to play with. Not stuck in middle of nowhere with cows and old man who bought her like cattle. Stop it, Rosa shouted, startling Luna into louder cries. Stop saying those things about Robert. But Robert could see the doubt creeping into Rosa's eyes. Carmen's words were like poison, making Rosa question everything they built together. Maybe your mother is right, Robert said quietly. Maybe you should go. Both women stared at him in shock. Maybe Luna deserves more than this, Robert continued, the words tearing at his throat. Maybe she deserves schools and opportunities. I can't give her out here. Robert, no, Rosa whispered. This is our home. Is it? Robert asked. Or am I just keeping you here because I'm selfish and lonely? Carmen smiled like she'd won. You see, even he knows truth. Pack your things, Rosa. We leave in 1 hour. Rosa looked between her mother and Robert, tears streaming down her face. Luna was crying harder now, sensing her mother's distress. You want me to go? Rosa asked Robert. Robert's heart was breaking, but he forced himself to nod. I want what's best for you and Luna. If that's not here, then yes. It was the hardest lie he'd ever told. Carmen went inside to help Rosa pack while Robert stood in the yard feeling like his world was falling apart all over again. In less than an hour, the two people who had brought joy back into his life would be gone. He thought about the past 6 months, about Luna's first smile and Rosa's laughter filling his kitchen. He thought about evening on the porch and the way Luna would reach for him when she was scared. Was Carmen right? Had he been selfish all along? As he watched Rosa walk to the car carrying Luna in a single suitcase, Robert wondered if letting them go was the most loving thing he'd ever done, or the biggest mistake of his life. The car pulled away in a cloud of dust, and Robert was alone again with nothing but the sound of wind through the trees and the echo of Carmen's harsh words ringing in his ears. 3 days felt like 3 years. Robert wandered around his house like a ghost, seeing Rosa and Luna everywhere he looked. The kitchen table where Rosa used to sing while feeding Luna. The rocking chair where she'd sit nursing the baby in the evenings. The little crib that now sat empty, still holding one of Luna's tiny socks. He couldn't eat. He couldn't sleep. He just sat on the porch staring down the empty driveway, hoping against hope that he'd see that old blue sedan coming back. On the 4th morning, Robert's phone rang. He almost didn't answer it, thinking it was probably just someone from town, asking about Rosa and Luna, but something made him pick up. Robert? It was Rosa's voice, but she sounded scared and upset. Rosa, are you okay? Is Luna all right?" "We are not okay," Rosa said, and Robert could hear Luna crying in the background. "Robert, this man, he is not good man like my mother," said. Robert's blood went cold. "What do you mean? What's happening?" "He wants to marry me, but not because he loves me. He says I owe him money now for bringing us here. Says I have to work in his restaurant for no pay until debt is gone. And Luna ... He says Luna bothers him with her crying. He wants to send her away to his sister." "Where are you right now?" Robert was already grabbing his truck keys. "In motel near Denver. I took Luna and left when he was at work. I spent all the money I had for one night here, but tomorrow—" Rosa's voice broke. "I don't know what to do. My mother, she is angry with me for leaving. She says I am ungrateful, that I ruined everything." "Give me the address," Robert said, heading for the door. "I'm coming to get you. You want us back." Rosa sounded like she couldn't believe it. "I never wanted you to leave," Robert said honestly. "I let you go because I thought it was what was best for you. But if you want to come home, then this is where you belong." The drive to Denver was the longest 4 hours of Robert's life. He pushed his old truck as fast as it would go, praying the whole way that Rosa and Luna would still be there when he arrived. He found them in a rundown motel on the outskirts of the city. When Rosa opened the door, she looked exhausted and scared, but her face lit up when she saw him. Luna was fussy and cranky, but she reached for Robert the moment she saw him. "Papa," Rosa said softly, watching Luna settle into Robert's arms. "She missed you. We both did." "I missed you too," Robert said, holding Luna close and breathing in her baby smell. "More than you'll ever know." The drive home was different from their first trip together almost a year ago. This time, Rosa sat close to him instead of pressed against the door. This time, Luna slept peacefully in her car seat. This time, they were choosing to be together. "I was so scared," Rosa admitted as they drove through the mountains. "When my mother came, she made me think maybe I was just being selfish, wanting to stay at the ranch. She said I was not thinking about what was best for Luna." "What do you think is best for Luna?" Robert asked. Rosa was quiet for a long time. "I think Luna needs to be loved. Really loved, not just taken care of. I think she needs to feel safe and wanted. I think she needs to grow up knowing that family is not just about blood, but about people who choose to love each other every day." Robert felt tears in his eyes. "And what about you? What do you need?" "I need to finish growing up," Rosa said honestly. "I need to learn things, maybe go to school like we talked about. But I want to do it here, with people who see me as more than just a young girl who made mistakes. I want to do it with you." When they got back to the ranch, everything looked exactly the same, but somehow it all felt different. Robert realized that the first time Rosa came here, it was because she had no choice. This time, she was choosing to stay. Over the next few weeks, they talked about everything. Robert told Rosa about his fears that he had been selfish, that he had somehow taken advantage of her situation. "You gave me choice when no one else would," Rosa said. "Even when my mother came, you let me choose. That is not taking advantage. That is love." They also talked about the future. Rosa enrolled in online classes to get her high school diploma. Robert helped her study English and math while Luna played on a blanket nearby. "After I finish this, I want to go to community college," Rosa said one evening. "Maybe study to be teacher like I always dreamed. We'll make it work," Robert promised. "Whatever you need." As Luna grew from a baby into a toddler, their little family found its rhythm. Rosa called Robert Papa more often now, and Luna's first clear word was Papa too. Rosa started helping with the ranch business, keeping books and answering phones. While Robert handled the animals, people in town gradually accepted them as a family. When anyone asked, Robert would say simply, "Rosa is my daughter, and Luna is my granddaughter." It wasn't legally true, but it was true in every way that mattered. 2 years after that terrible day when Carmen took them away, Rosa graduated from community college with honors. She was accepted to the state university with a partial scholarship to study education. I can take online classes for the first 2 years, she told Robert excitedly. Then maybe just drive to campus for the last 2 years. Luna will be older by then. Robert looked at this confident, smart young woman who bore little resemblance to the scared girl who had arrived at his ranch 3 years ago. I'm so proud of you, he said. I could not do any of this without you, Rosa said. You believe in me when I did not believe in myself. Luna, now a chattering 3-year-old, ran around the house speaking both English and Spanish, equally comfortable with horses and picture books. She called Robert Abuelo now, and would sit on his lap while he read her stories about brave princesses and magical horses. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching Luna chase fireflies in the yard, Robert reflected on how wrong he'd been. About miracles. He thought the miracle he was waiting for would be getting back what he'd lost. He thought it would be replacing his wife and son with new versions. But the real miracle was learning that love doesn't replace, it multiplies. Rosa wasn't his wife, and Luna wasn't his biological granddaughter. But they were his family in ways that went deeper than blood or law. They had chosen each other, again and again, through difficulties and doubts and the opinions of other people. What are you thinking about? Rosa asked, noticing his quiet mood. I was thinking about miracles, Robert said. How they don't always look the way we expect them to. Rosa smiled and took his hand. The miracle is not that we found each other, she said. The miracle is that we chose to stay. As the sun set behind the mountains and Luna's laughter filled the evening air, Robert knew she was right. Sometimes the greatest miracle is simply learning to love without trying to own, to give without expecting return, and to build a family. Not from what you've lost, but from what you choose to cherish every single day. Their story had started with desperation and money changing hands. But it had become something beautiful, proof that love, real love, can grow in the most unexpected places and transform everyone it touches.